Hi everyone, I'm Alice and welcome to my channel. Today I'm joined by Paul and we're going to talk about what happens after self-realization and how it integrates into human life. So thank you, Paul, for joining me, and thank you for accepting the invitation and joining me on this call.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. So if I'm not mistaken, it's been around 8 or 9 months since you realized your true nature. Am I right?
Yeah, so I think it's been just maybe closer to 10 months now, possibly. But yeah, around there.
Yeah,
Around there.
like myself, more or less. So definitely there was this before and after effect for you. I mean, just right after the whole thing happened. But could you compare this before and after? I mean, before, after you just realized your true nature, and now, since months have passed, time has passed, so probably something has changed for you.
Oh, 100%. So when all of this first happened, I felt like my mind had been blown open and I understood everything. I thought I understood absolutely everything then, and you couldn't have told me probably at the time that I didn't understand everything then. And it's just it's like there's always so much more. So I feel like that's the biggest thing that I've noticed, like that. Like there's the realization deepens and deepens and deepens, or then you kind of look at something that you already understood but from a slightly different perspective, and then you understand it slightly differently again. Like it's like there's no end to the understanding, really. Do you know what I mean? So there's no end to this process. I'm sure there's no end to this process, because I feel like, yeah, with me, it's like every time I think I'm absolutely got, okay, so this is it. I know this for sure. And then it's kind of like my perspective tilts slightly and I see the same thing from a slightly different perspective. And I'm like, oh God, no, there's so much more to know still. Like I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of how I feel.
Well, I remember your interview with David Bingham, and by the way, I will leave the link in the description box for you guys. And I remember our first chat soon afterwards, everything happened for you and for me as well. And I remember you saying how massive, how wild everything was, and it was absolutely crazy. And I shared your state of mind and state of, I don't know, just general your emotions. And now you say you can see things like in a slightly different perspective, probably. Does it get more difficult for you? Because I heard some people say that they even got depressed at some point.
Do you know what? I think it is, because as humans, we're always kind of conditioned that, like, we work on this linear kind of thing, and there's always going to be an end. There's an end point where we've accomplished whatever we set out to accomplish, whatever. And this is not an accomplishment like that, but I think because we're human and we've grown up with those patterns, I think a lot of people are always kind of looking for this kind of point where they're just on this really steady ground where they feel like they know everything and everything's accomplished. And I just don't think it will ever work like that. I think knowing yourself through other people, because it's just yourself and other selves, isn't it? You're just in a constant kind of like a fun house, like a circus fun house, where you're just being reflected in a million different ways.
Yeah.
So it's infinite. The amount of ways that you can know yourself is infinite, because we are infinite. So I feel like I can understand maybe that some people might like the sheer magnitude of this, like the sheer, like, when you can say the word infinity, but the word infinity means nothing until you actually feel what something feels like to be infinite, and then it almost feels quite, not scary, but it makes you just feel so tiny. Like you're like, God, I am one tiny cell in like a body of God knows how many cells. Like, it's not all about me, even though you're everything in the microcosm. It's not all about you. Do you know what I mean? And so I can kind of understand why some people might kind of get to that point where they're like, just like, I don't know, mind blown by that, maybe a little bit. But depressed, I mean, depression, I don't know, maybe I could feel depressed, but I've just got this overwhelming sense of like peace, this overwhelming sense of well-being, even when everything in the world is going absolutely nuts. And don't get me wrong, there has been challenges, been so many challenges, and even things that would have thrown me like for an absolute loop before would have made me think that everything was terrible. And I've just got this overwhelming feeling that everything's okay. Everything's okay. It's just the way the game's playing out. And in terms of like depression, I don't know. I've never felt depressed. If anything, I've just got this overwhelming sense of everything's okay, even when things are a bit chaotic, or even when things kind of seem to be going a bit backwards. It's always kind of going backwards to go forwards in a different way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So probably knowing yourself through others, you said something like that, right? Probably it's when after being self-realized, after this happens to you, it's when actually you start knowing yourself. You realize your true nature, but then you start just exploring your vastness, your infinity, and your diversity through others. This is what you're trying to say. Am I right?
Yeah, I feel like because don't get me wrong, like I quite often, and this makes me probably sound like a bit schizophrenic or something, but I quite often will refer to Paul, and when I'm talking about Paul, I'm either talking about the time before, or I'm talking about like Paul kind of program, which is all together still there, because the character Paul was only ever a collection of ideas. He was only ever a collection of things that people told him he was, and things that he decided he was for himself. And it was just I just compiled a really complex character and played him. That's all I was doing. And it's the opportunity is still there to be Paul all the time, and it still happens all the time, because like, I live in a world where like obviously I'm dealing with people all the time, but I feel like there's a definite difference to when I'm putting Paul on to when I'm not. It's like I put on the Paul mask when I need to be Paul. Does that make sense?
Right, absolutely.
And other than that, like I'm quite happy to be nobody, like to be absolutely nobody who wants nothing, who likes nothing, who feels neutral. And I think sometimes the neutrality can freak people out as well, because it doesn't mean you don't care. If anything, I care a million times more than I did before. But it's just this feeling of whatever's playing out, it's okay. It's just me knowing myself in a different way. Even when you meet you meet some people in life and they're awful. They're absolutely awful. The character that they're playing is absolutely, really difficult to be around. But what they are is a perfect expression of the all, the same as exactly what I am. But are some characters harder to be around? Yes, they are. And it's fine to be like that. But it's also like I see it and I think, but you're just playing your little character and you don't even realize that you are. And so I feel like a sense of like compassion,
Exactly.
like, oh, you got a tougher character than I did, so I feel for you having to play that character. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking about compassion and seeing them not being aware of them playing their role, this helped me. I mean, self-realization helped me understand and accept the fact that everything is absolutely perfect, and them being ignorant is their choice. And everybody has just the same possibility and ability, I think, to discover the truth if they want it. And if they don't, it's also absolutely perfect, because this is how the world was designed. This is how I designed it, or you designed it, because it has to continue, and it's a wonderful, wonderful play. No matter how chaotic and crazy and devastating it may seem, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you become humble, right? Because some people are really worried about losing their individuality, their personality, but it has never existed. And I think it's when you really become a personality, if we can say so, like you become authentic in its true meaning.
Yeah, I think like society in general is like the cult of the personality. We're told that we need to be individual. What makes you special? What makes you stand out from the crowd? And so we all really strived for that thing. This is what I am, and this is why I'm special, and this is why I stick out from the crowd. And then once I realized that, I just realized, God, I was just pretending that entire time. And then I realized when I was being creative, or when I was being kind, or when I was being like peaceful, I was always being myself. But it was all the other things that were put on. So when I was being bitchy, or when I was being, angry, or when I was whatever it was, sly, manipulative, that's when I wasn't being myself. But I was always coming from that place without meaning to, when I was being kind, when I was being creative, that's when I really felt it. And it felt so good to be like that. It felt so good to be like that, but you couldn't have told me before that's because you're being your true nature here. I just didn't understand. I was never in a place to hear it before. But once I saw it, I was like, God, it's so easy when I just come at things from my own perspective as my true nature. It's so easy. It only becomes a problem once I start acting the role and trying to manipulate the situation, or trying to make myself look better than I think I am, or trying to like be in competition with somebody, or whatever it is. But yeah, I think that's triggering for a lot of people. The fact that like your individuality is really real, and they're like, "But what do you mean?" Because they want to be an individual, and that's okay, because everybody is at the point of their evolution where they need to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're wherever you are is perfect, and that's another point. Like, some of my friends or family members and things are a bit like, well, will this happen for me? And I'm like, I hope so. God, I hope so with all my heart. But it'll happen for you when it's time. You'll wake up when it's time for you to wake up. When you've had enough of being asleep, you will wake up. And I think that's the case for everyone. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. And well, according to my downloads during this time, I understood that since this lifetime was designed by myself, for myself, to have a chance, if I chose so, to discover my true nature. So I thought that probably, well, in my case, it did happen. So there were certain signs or indicators that were pointing at this fact. So I know that your self-realization was like, I'm slowly moving to another topic, to another question. So I know that your self-realization was spontaneous. So, but still, could you probably look back and find some indicators of your future self-realization?
So I wasn't at all spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard of spirituality. I knew it existed. Didn't interest me at all. I wasn't at all religious. If anything, I was anti-religion. I was very like, I don't understand what you people are doing. Like, it just, honestly, I was very, as I thought, I was very logical. I was very like, well, I can explain this. This is this, and I was very scientific in that way. But I was very, very creative. So I was always open to the fact that things could be more than what they appeared to be. But I didn't ever think that was anything to do with spirituality at all. So when this happened for me, which was completely spontaneous, I was like, I had to reassess everything that I thought I believed. And it was so funny because I didn't have the language for this. I hadn't been following gurus. I hadn't been looking at Muji and Rupert and David and all of those people. I didn't even know they existed. So when this happened for me, I didn't have words like consciousness or like, the sovereign being or the one creator or anything like that. So the only word I had was God. And so when it happened for me, what I said to myself, when I was like, it just like you say, it's like a download. It's not realizing something new, it's remembering. I remembered. And I was like, I'm God. And I did just this feeling of just like, and I knew it. Every cell of my body knew it. And I was going to myself, no, this can't be right. This can't be right. And then I was going, so am I just God? Am I just God? Am I God on my own? Like, I just didn't understand. And I was going, am I God on my own? I was going, that doesn't feel right. And I was going, but I've always known this. I was going to myself, I've always known this. And then I was like, but this doesn't feel. And then all of a sudden it clicked again. I was like, no, we are God. And then I was like, do you know what I mean? It's like, yes. I was like, we're God. I was like, we've been talking to something outside of ourselves, this man with a beard who lives in the clouds or something like that. Yeah, because it's us. And we're experiencing ourselves through a billion unlimited amount of perspectives. And I was like, and we're all it. But then I was like, every plant and animal is it. I was like, and I'm saying it like it's something else, us, I am. But I was like, oh my God. And I started crying. I started crying because I couldn't believe I got it so wrong. And you judge yourself in that moment for it. And then, having said that I wasn't religious, the first thing I did was I confessed. I confessed, but I didn't know who I was confessing to because it was just myself. And I was like, I've done this and I've done that. And I tried to come up with all these cases why I couldn't be, well, as I was saying, God. Do you know what I mean? And I remember crying really, really hard and confessing all these, just standing there saying all these things to nobody, to myself. And standing there like I was waiting for something, like a big voice to come from the clouds and be like, it's okay. I don't know. And I just remember saying to myself, and this is it, because it's hard. If this hasn't happened, it's hard. It makes it sound like there's two people there and there's not. It's always just you dealing with you. But I was like, I remember just saying to myself in the kindest voice that didn't even feel like my voice, but it was my voice, just saying, it doesn't matter. I was just like, it doesn't matter. And then I kind of went, yeah, that's right, it doesn't matter. And it was like shrugging off the heaviest thing I was carrying. It was like all of a sudden I realized I'd been carrying these really heavy shopping bags that I could have put down at any time, but I just didn't, because I didn't even realize I was carrying them. And then all of a sudden I was like, why have I been carrying all this really heavy stuff? Put it down. And I put it down and I was like, God, that feels so good.
Then put it down.
And yeah, I was just like, I could have done that at any point. At any point in this experience, I could have done it, but I didn't, because I didn't even realize I was carrying all this heavy stuff. So, what question I'm answering here?
You're already describing the whole thing, but I mean, I wanted to know about some signs, maybe back in your childhood, something indirect, maybe pointing.
So many things that I'm still realizing. I'm going, oh my God, that was it.
That was it. Yeah, everything makes sense.
Everything. It's like you have. I'm saying, the way I'm experiencing it is, because life is like we're in a pattern, we're in a maze, and you don't see the shape of the maze while you're in the maze. But then every now and again, you have these glorious moments where you see it from above.
Exactly.
And you see the exact pattern, and you're like, oh my God. I was running around over here, and they were all dead ends, and I didn't realize. And all I needed to do was go, like and so I've had a few moments like that. So I was a really, really creative kid. I was also kind of like a bit of. I didn't want to hang out with the kids outside. I wanted to always be on my own. I wanted to be drawing. I loved animals. I just wanted to be using my imagination. I wanted to be creative. And so my mum would be like, can you just go outside and play with the kids? It's a really sunny day. And I'd be like, no, I just wanted to be in my room. I was really, really happy with my own company. But I realized that other people thought when you were happy with your own company that there was something quite weird about that. But I was just like, this makes me sound, not being big-headed, I just really loved myself. I loved myself so much that to spend time alone being creative was just felt so perfect. So now I look back on it, I think that was definitely like kind of something. On top of that, I often used to have feelings of just about things. I just have, and I'm not saying like, super psychic or anything like that, even though I believe that we all are. Do you know what I mean? But I used to have these feelings, dreams or things that would happen, and I would just write it off. But now things have kind of happened, or I've had realizations that I go, that was that dream that I had when I was 4, and I always remembered it. Like, who remembers a dream from that long ago? But I did. I used to have this recurrent nightmare where I used to think my mum used to have in her room, she had like a little room off her room, but weirdly she pulled a wardrobe in front of the door. So it used to really freak me out that there was a wardrobe in front of a door and I couldn't see what was in the other room. And I used to have these nightmares that a guy lived in this other room, and he had tattoos, and he was like this, and I had just this feeling of this guy, and I was petrified of him. And I called him the wolf in my dream. And I've grown up and I've looked at myself in the mirror and I go, I was the wolf. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm like thing. And I go, it was me. I was dreaming about my future. And I swore that I was dreaming about myself, my future self. And I caught myself in the mirror and I looked and I was like, that is exactly the person that I used to be petrified of in my dreams.
Wow.
Like, and I used to call him the wolf. And I've got a tattoo of a wolf, so I don't know whether that's why I on my hand. I don't know whether that's why as a kid I called this person the wolf. So that another thing. And then what really was weird in kind of maybe the year leading up to realization, like I've never wrote poems or anything like that.
I was about to say that. Okay, go ahead.
So I was never like, I was creative, but I'd never wrote poems or anything like that. And I just started waking up in the morning or sometimes in the night, and I just have these words in my head, and I'd get up and I'd write them down. So my partner would get up sometimes. It'd be like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be downstairs with a lamp on. Like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, I just need to write this down. And it would just be a fully formed poem. And so I was like, that's weird. Anyway, carried on doing it. And I didn't think there was any connection to any of these things until I self-realized. And then I read the poems again, and every single one was kind of telling a story of self-realization. And so I was telling myself what was going to happen, but I just didn't know what I was doing. So one kind of couple of lines that stick out in my head is at the end of one of the poems. I can't remember the entire thing just off the top of my head, but the very end of it was, remember, each silent thing sings that you are it all, you are everything. And I just didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I was writing it down. I just didn't have a clue what it meant. And then after realization, I was like, I was telling myself, I was preparing myself for this happening, but I just didn't know. Like, so there was so many things. And I think, if I'm honest, there's been so many things for everybody, but we're so scientifically minded. We're so like, no, that's not this, that we just ignore all of these like little miracles that are happening all the time. How about you? Did you have things like that?
Well, I did, and I paid enough attention to that. I was a seeker. I have always been. Now it seems like there's nothing to seek anymore, but still you are looking for possibilities to integrate the whole thing into your life, because you still have to socialize and you have to do something now as a human, since you're still here. Looking forward to living when it's time. But yeah, in the past, things like your nightmares and seeing someone. I think we discussed that one day. That I was just falling asleep, and I was around like 4 years old maybe, and then I suddenly saw someone, like a woman, like wearing a veil or something like on her face, and I only could see a little bit of her lips, of her mouth, and she just was trying to kiss me with her smiling mouth, and that felt really weird. And then I forgot about it. I tried to tell my mom. I knew it was not my mom, and I could feel this strong flow of love towards me, but it felt strange and scary. And then I told my mom, and she said, oh, nonsense. Like, it's her typical way of reacting to things I was trying to share with her. Okay, I understand. Everything is perfect. Everyone is perfect. And maybe thanks to that, I'm here now. Oh, my camera is getting crazy. Too much energy, right? So last year when I was meditating, and I like Joe Dispenza's meditations, I decided to revisit this little child that I was and send love to that little girl. And I just went to her and I kissed her. And at that moment I understood that it was me, and me as a kid. Saw myself from the future, and this is how I felt that there is no time really. And this happened before self-realization, by the way, but that was really interesting. But back to your poem, you also sent me, I think, one, and probably if you could, we could include it in this video maybe later, if you feel like reading it. Maybe later after we have recorded it, and I will just, edit the whole thing. But I remember one line that I remember I was walking along the street just reading our chat, and then there was a line saying, "Evolve or die." And it made me so emotional. I was just crying all the way to work, you know, like, because this is exactly how it felt for me. I decided to, you know, to do everything possible and impossible to achieve self-realization, because it felt like liberation. Yeah, that was just the freedom I wanted. And I know how people are afraid of being free. I think it's the worst enemy. That is why, even though everyone has this possibility of realizing their true nature, they won't do that because it's so scary.
Yeah, like we are the prisoner and the prison guard all in one. Like we police ourselves, so it's kind of like you're walking around in a cell, but you've got the key to the cell in your back pocket the entire time, but you just forgot about it. But you're also the guard who's like, stay in the cell, and you're also the prisoner who's like, I want to get out the cell. Like it's everything at once.
Exactly.
I feel so because obviously I've now made lots of connections with lots of different people. Actually, who spoke to David. David has been so instrumental in like just such a gorgeous man. Like just the best energy. Like so calm. So just kind,
so humble,
and just the funny thing is with me and David as well, like I just have this real sense of deja vu with David. Like I from the minute I spoke to him, I was like, I know you. Like I just felt so at peace, and so I just felt like I was looked after straight away. I knew everything was okay, do you know? And so because of that, obviously, loads of different people have interviewed with David, and a lot of us have now reached out to each other, and it's been so lovely, because for this to happen to you is the most incredible thing that can happen to you in a lifetime. Like I feel so grateful, but it's also like the most ordinary thing that could happen to you, because all you're doing is seeing what was already there. So in one way, it's completely magical and completely miraculous, and gosh, I'm so grateful that I've had the chance to experience like my true self. But in another way, it just feels like, but of course, I was always going to. There was not a way that I wasn't going to. Like you said, I feel like this incarnation with me was my time for it to happen. So it was always going to happen. That's the way it felt to me. It felt inevitable. But at the same time, the most miraculous and like, you know, thing that could ever happen.
Right. But let's talk about the flip side of self-realization, which is invitations. So how has it been for you?
Yeah, I feel like this is maybe what's missing on the internet, because I think we hear a lot about, you know, the peace and how life becomes very effortless, and the synchronicities, things just turning up, things working out for you really effortlessly, and all of that is 100% true. But the mind is the biggest double-edged sword that anybody could ever hold. Like the mind, when used properly, when used from a place of kind of like of peace, and from a place of kind of like seeing it for what it is, amazing tool. Absolutely, like the most incredible tool that anyone could ever design. But the mind, when it's not used, or when you just leave it to run its own course, horrific. So it's us all like little computers, or little parts of a computer or something. We're full of all this programming, which we programmed ourselves with, by the way. You know, nobody programmed this into us. Like we programmed ourselves with the character we're playing, with the likes and dislikes, with the fears, with all of these things. Self-realization comes, and I can only speak from my own experience, but all of a sudden that programming was dropped for, God, like a good couple of weeks. I just felt like I was attached to nothing. I needed nothing. Everything was fine. And then after those weeks, it's kind of like the mind's like, oh, you think this is good? Watch this. And it starts throwing up the most triggering things that it could. And at first, I started seeing it kind of like an enemy, or like an opponent. Do you know what I mean? Like something like I was playing, like I was either fighting against or playing chess against almost.
Welcome back to the duality.
And so I 100% fell into that of, wow, this is coming up. And then you'd have days when you'd wake up and you'd feel like you'd lost it. You'd be like, it's left me. Where's the feeling gone? Where is that beautiful feeling gone? I've lost it. How could you ever lose it? You never, it was always there. So I would have all of those days. And then the onion kind of unpeels again and you realize there's another layer. Then I started realizing the things that were coming up weren't coming up to kind of attack me, or weren't coming up to make me feel, they were showing themselves to me because they were like, look at this rubbish that you're holding on to. Look at this rubbish. So it's like, I'm here, I'm showing myself to you. Acknowledge me, realize that you can let me go, and I'm off. So once I started realizing that, the invitations got a lot easier. I was like, humans, we've got so much junk. You know that cupboard in everybody's house where they shove all of their junk and then they close the door really quickly because it's all going to fall out? Everybody has that kind of mental cupboard, I think. And mine was absolutely full. You know, Paul's cupboard was absolutely full. Like, there was bits sticking out the crack of the door. There was all kinds. You just can't carry all that junk around. You need to, you know, you need to be free of it all. And it's kind of, I suppose this is what people call, because I wasn't spiritual, so I don't know a lot of the spiritual language, but I hear a lot of people talking about their shadow side or their shadow self or things like that. So a lot of the things that were coming up for me were things that maybe I've pushed down because I thought that's not socially acceptable, or maybe society has told us, oh, this isn't something we speak about, or this isn't something we're supposed to feel. So we all still do. So things that came up for me really, really strangely at first was lust. I found myself finding people really attractive, but anybody, literally anybody on the street. I started feeling these really, really intense kind of like lusty feelings. But when I say this, like, it's not even just to people that I would normally find attractive. It was just to any being that walked past me on the street. And I was like, and I started really battling against it. Why am I, oh God, I must be an awful person. Why is this happening? And I did that for a while until I realized, no, it's showing itself to me. It's just showing itself to me for me to look at it and go, that's okay. Like, you're okay. We all have that urge. We all have that feeling from time to time, but I think it came in so strongly for me to look at it, so I couldn't ignore it and go, you're okay, you're welcome here, like, you're welcome. Like, I'm a human being with chemical reactions, with human urges. You know, we're just animals. The body I'm in is an animal's body. Do you know what I mean? So all of these things were programmed with all of this stuff. And so after weeks of me thinking, God, what is the matter with me? I must be some kind of absolute rampant pervert or something like that. I was just like, it's showing itself to me to be kind of forgiven, or it's showing itself to me to be let go of. And as soon as I realized that, just stopped. Just stopped straight away. And it was like, again, it was like putting down another little, maybe I put down the majority of the bags I was holding, but maybe my pockets were full of some rubbish. And so then I pulled something out of my pocket and was like, oh, I can put that down. And so there was a lot of other things like that that came as what we would call an invitation. And then, of course, the human in you wants to go, what is this? No, don't want it, because we've been so used to whatever that thing is, trying to shove it back in that cupboard and not look at it. And then I realized, no, hang on a minute, it's the exact opposite to what I should be doing. I need to open this cupboard, let it all fall out, and look at it all, and be like, oh, that's that, okay, and just see it in the light. So my invitations, yes, there's been many. Yes, sometimes it can literally feel like the devil is on your back.
Which is you as well.
which is me as well. Also, yeah, also it didn't exist. The church just made it up to scare us. Sometimes it can feel cruel, and it can feel overwhelming, and it can feel frightening, and it can feel like it can feel hopeless. Once I realized the things that were coming up for me were doing it for my benefit. It was just showing me my rubbish, to look at it, to acknowledge it, and as soon as I acknowledged it and I stopped fighting against it, it just disappeared. So again, it's like this thing of us pretending that we're not as powerful as we are. like we play this game like where we kind of tie our hands behind our back and then try and like have a boxing match. Do you know what I mean? And then you realize, no, hang on a minute, like I'm like, we're unlimited. There isn't anything that arises is allowed to be there. And you know, a lot of people then are going to jump in, well, awful things happen in the world, and awful things do happen in the world. So I don't want to negate anybody's experience, because Paul had a really easy ride of it. You know, he didn't, nothing really awful happened to him, and I know that a lot of other selves live really, really challenging, awful lives where terrible things happen to them. So I don't want to negate anybody else's experience, but I can only speak about my own. And it once all the things that I thought needed to be hidden or weren't good enough or were dirty or shameful or I should have felt guilty about or anything like that, when I looked at them, I just saw them for what they were, and most of them were just mistakes or errors that I made. And then like this idea of sin doesn't exist. Sin doesn't exist. It's just we make little mistakes as we go, and then we judge ourselves really heavily on them, or we fear judgment from other people about them, or we think about, you know, what does the church think, or what does society think, and all these things. So we kind of like crucify ourselves for this little mistake, and then it stays there in the cupboard, growing and growing and growing. And I was like, no, look at it. As soon as I looked at it, I was like, yeah, I've made so many mistakes. I love every one of them. I love every mistake that I've made, because every mistake that I made, I grew from. Every mistake that I made, I learned a lesson from. So, great, show me them all. Do you know what I mean? Because it sounds so cheesy to say, but, you know, like RuPaul says on RuPaul's Drag Race, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? But it's so true. You need to make sure that you're okay with you. And then once you've done that, you can be okay with any other you that shows themselves to you, no matter how difficult they are, because you've cleaned out your shit. You know, you've got rid of your junk. So it's really easy to see other people's junk and go, it's okay, you're just carrying that stuff. I really hope that you can put it down soon.
I appreciate you being so frank about your rubbish, as you call it. Yeah, but this last thing also happened to me, but how I explained it to myself was that it was just trapped energy, because basically sexual energy is the energy that created the world, and we have lots of it, you know, at the base of the spine. Lots of energy to create a baby, right? It's definitely natural, and I don't even think, I think that there was certain patterns, both for you and for me, which were not accepted, which were resisted, and what you resist persists. And I think when you liberate, it's time to, you know, to face those hidden patterns, yes, as you said, those shadow things. And all my old patterns that started emerging as well, because I had no idea I had so many of them, and because I thought that I did work on many of them before, which is also possible, I think. I mean, you don't need to be self-realized to start accepting your own shit. Turn it into gold, literally, by releasing it and releasing energy. And I think this is what happened. Like, we released some patterns by accepting them, and we released a lot of trapped energy that manifested itself in this strange way, but well, little by little. And then, speaking about invitations and integration process, could we talk a little bit about how it manifests itself in personal relationships, in your opinion?
So, I am fully aware that I didn't know that this even existed before it happened to me. So I feel like I've played catch up with a lot of this stuff, and I did, like, you know, I went away and I looked into things and all that, but it's strange what's happened to us, to other people, to all the other selves, to our family, to all that. It must be weird, because they're so used, they know us as a person, they know us as who they think they know us as, and that's just the character. So all of a sudden, when you're like, I no longer identify like with that person, it kind of, I think there's a grieving process for other people because they really loved that person. And I really loved them too. Like I really like me and Paul went through everything together. Like I loved him, but he was never me. He was never me. And so I think that's really triggering for a lot of your close relationships because they're like, but I love Paul, and you're like, so do I, but I'm still here. Like Paul was just me when I was at my worst. Paul was me at my worst, at my most confused, at my most, do you know what I mean? My most unconscious. But whenever I was here, like I say, in love or in peace or in compassion or in, you know, being creative, being funny, being just wanting to play, that was always me. That was always me. So nothing's been lost, but everything's been gained. But I think without this perspective that which we're lucky enough to have right now, when you're still really, really trapped up in the game, really, really trapped up in your own character, I think that's really hard for a lot of people to hear.
Yeah.
So I've been so lucky. My family are really, really open-minded. The friends which I've told have been so open-minded. My partner, so open-minded. I couldn't have asked for anything more. And do you know what? This is a funny thing because when this happened, the day this happened to me, I was kind of having this conversation with myself, and I don't, you know, and I was like, how am I going to tell people? And I remember telling myself in the same voice, when people hear the truth, they will hear it as the truth. And they weren't my words. That's like a download or whatever. But it was like, don't lie. It was like, when they hear the truth, they will hear it as the truth. And so that's what I did. I was like, as mad as this sounds, I went home and I told the truth. I called my mum, I called my sister, I told them the truth. And as much as they were like, what? Like, there was just a strange resonance where they were like, on some level, they really, really understood it and almost expected it. Like, almost like, you know, almost like, yeah, of course. Like, I've spoken to other people and like, you know, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing special about you. There's nothing special about any of us. Like, this is not a hierarchy thing. Like, this is not like, you know, people, like, that's where we went wrong with the whole Jesus thing. You know, Jesus, I believe, was self-realized, didn't have the language for what he was feeling. So rather than say, I'm just one part of the whole, the best way you could say it was, I'm a part of my father kind of thing. I'm the son of something, meaning I'm a cell in the body of the all. And everyone was like, oh, he's the son, you know, we're not, he is. And so it became about one person. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, I wasn't there. But that's the way I understand, like, Christianity now. So I'm like, if we can't make that same mistake again of putting somebody on a pedestal, we are completely normal. We are completely normal. All we have is a privileged perspective now because we opened our eyes to it, because we remembered. But what I don't want is for people who are maybe seeking or who this hasn't happened for to look at us like we're some kind of superheroes, or to look at us like, you know, there's something special about us because there's nothing special about us. You are perfect, but you will just remember when it's time for you to remember how perfect you are. So in answer to relationships, yeah, I can totally understand how a lot of people might feel alienated by this, because people, especially with the way religion has kind of programmed us, people want to put things like this on a pedestal and make it out to be something unique and something special, and it's not. It's not. It's the entire point to us all playing this game, that we wake up within the game. I think that's the entire point to it.
Yeah, but there's no way for you to explain it to others, to those who doesn't know that. Because when I read about this unconditional love and this blah blah blah, I could understand intellectually, but at the same time I thought, but it's impossible, and it must be boring or something like that. But now I understand that I had no partner when this happened to me. But I also noticed that liberation attracts people. When you literally stop trying to attract people. You know, I used to, you know, high heels, makeup and stuff. Well, women will understand it, you know, to attract looks and to become, you know, like a head turner. And suddenly it's like, I don't care anymore. I'm feeling so good, you know, with myself. I'm my partner. I'm in love with myself and I'm going on a date with myself, and you feel so free and so satisfied, and you don't want them to, you know, to come closer, because it's like, oh man, now I will have to, you know, to steal time from being with myself to you know, to answer their questions and stuff. And what happened to me, that there was a really nice person, but I couldn't correspond because there was no way for me to explain the whole thing, because I wanted to see him free, you know, absolutely, but the common vision of love is about possessing, controlling, jealousy, validation, and like I suddenly felt, because I really had this low self-esteem. Now I understand that there is no self-esteem at all, because if there is self-esteem, there is duality, and it's like you are, and that's it, and there, you don't think about anything else, and you don't, you know, evaluate any part of yourself, right? And in this case, I understood that I couldn't explain anything, and I could feel at the same time that I loved that person, and I love that person more than they love me, because this love is real, it's true, and you want to set them free, but you know that you cannot explain anything to them. And as you said at the beginning, Nick, I refer to this human experience as Paul, but I'm nobody, interested in nothing, wanting nothing. It's exactly what happened to me, and I remember I even like felt a little bit emotional as a woman, as my female part. I felt emotional, and I told him, I think this must be really difficult to be in love with someone who needs nothing. Because you don't need any compliments, presents, and you need nothing. You're happy being with them, talking to them and sharing your positivity. But you understand that, well, it's a tricky topic really, and I think we still have material to explore, I think, and probably we will talk a few months later and let's see what happens.
And understand it differently. I love what you've just said there, because that's what I feel so strongly is I understand love so differently now. I used to think love was to kindly own something, to own something like a pet, like it's, you own it, but you own it in the kindest way that you can. Like you want to make sure everything's okay for it, blah, blah. And now, my God, love is freedom. Love is go and do whatever you do, because I will still be here loving you. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't need you to love me back for me to love you. I don't need you to be here. I don't need you to be anything that I expect you to be.
Exactly.
Like I just love you, and so you feel that obviously within your personal relationships a lot, but I feel that for people on the street, like, it's so stupid. Like, sometimes, like, I cry a lot, like, and I was never a crier. I cry so much, like my eyes will fill up so often just from the beauty of things. And sometimes I'll pass a complete random stranger on the street, and this wave of just compassion and just love for them. And it often happens with old people for me, for some reason. It's often old people, and I just feel like just the biggest wave of love for them, and my eyes will fill up, because I can't like, it's overwhelming in that moment how much love I feel for this person that I don't even know the name or where they're going or anything like that. And it doesn't happen all the time. And like I said, sometimes you meet people who absolutely annoy the hell out of you. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like I wander around like always glowing with this love, but I realize that, like, it's always there. Like, just the respect for life. Like, the respect for life is just like, it's just unbelievable. And that's plants, that's animals, that's just the utter respect, because it's me. And in taking care of you, I'm just taking care of myself. Like, so it's yeah, so love is a funny thing. We've I think as a society and as a culture, whatever, we've slightly misunderstood, in my opinion, the meaning of love. I think even though we've set things up, you know, like marriages and things like that, and I think that's all because we started owning kind of properties and things. And so we started trying to protect what we thought was ours.
Yeah, we need guarantees.
So if you're coming in, you need to tie yourself to me with this contract, because it's just like, oh no, like, I you know, it's not that in my mind is a misunderstanding of love. But if that's where you are right now, then that's perfect for you. You need to go through that to realize maybe that it's not that. Maybe you won't realize that. Maybe it'll take another few lifetimes. I don't know. But yeah, love is a funny one, isn't it? Because it's the most misunderstood thing, I think, on this planet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so relationships. And what about work?
Work was really funny. So I'm a teacher. I say was. I just resigned my job 2 weeks ago, and that was for a lot of reasons. It was for a lot of reasons. My relationship ended very, very amicably, but my relationship ended, and I moved back to Liverpool, where I'm from Glasgow. But being a teacher, I was within a structure there, a societal structure, which actually, the more I was looking at, I was like, this is a bit like which we try to make a monkey be a fish, and we try to be. Do you know what I mean? Perfect. So all these gorgeous kids come to school with all their different skills and all their different passions and all this, and we're like, well, that's very good, but no, you've got to fit this exact mold, otherwise you can't be successful in this society that we've built for ourselves.
Right.
And so so that was a funny one for me. But apart from the fact that, like, obviously the whole school structure is kind of a bit strange the way we've evolved when you think about it like that, like beat out of like just be good at English and maths or whatever, and the rest is like whatever. But apart from that, it was lovely because relationships and things like that, now that's where I thrive. So being able to sit down like with kids and be able just to be really open with them, just to allow them, just not to be like, yeah, I'm expecting you to be this or whatever. And that's what was a bit difficult, because you know, we live in a society of law and order, and you know, you need to do this at this specific time, and we all need to be quiet now, and we all need to and I understand the benefits of all of those things, but actually just being able to spend time with these like younger selves, because I've lived exactly through that time, and I know how difficult it is, and just being able to say to them, you're perfect, like you're perfect, okay, you don't realize it yet, you've got so much to give. And what you've got to give is different to what this person on this desk has got to give. And that's okay, because it's perfect in its own way. But you will just find what your niche is. You will find what you can give, because your song is completely different to every other song that somebody's got to sing. And they are all the most equally perfect thing that they could be. So that's what I was always trying to get across to my kids. Like be you. And it sounds, again, cheesy, and it sounds oversaid. But I was like, we live in a society that wants us to be little robot, like cookie cutters, like things, like you have to fit the mold. And I was like, what is absolutely the most perfect thing about all of you is you're so different. You're so different and so perfect still. So it kind of got a bit like that for me. Anyway, like I said, I moved cities, so I'm taking a break right now. And also, I feel like I've made a lot of space in my life just for something to show up. Like from the last video that I did with David, like a lot of people reached out to me from the internet, and I was so happy just to like do a Zoom with them. I've stayed in contact with them all. We text, we email, and I'm like, God, I feel like I'm given so much more of what I can give in that capacity than what I ever did in the classroom. Because so many, I feel so lucky that I wasn't a seeker. I didn't have to go through that. And I feel so grateful, actually, that I didn't. Maybe another lifetime I did, I don't know. But I feel so grateful, because I see so many people who are just in this position of just real desperation sometimes, of just, they've had enough. Like, they just have had enough. And if there's something that I can give you, even if it's just my kindness, even if it's just my time to listen to you and to think, God, why wouldn't I do that? Because I was spared being in that position in this lifetime. I just woke up. I just woke up. So I've created this space. We've created this video. I'm doing a second video with David Bingham to talk about life post-realization. And I'm just, you know what? I'm just putting it out there. Reach out to me. There's my email.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like let's hang out. Let's talk about. We don't, you know what I mean? Like a lot of the time with a lot of these people, like we don't even talk about this. Just talk about life and talk about whatever. But it always comes back to this because this is everything. So I just feel like God, the urge to be of service, and I can be of service in society and in a school. And like I say, I could have these really nice relationships with the kids, and I could tell them, listen, thoughts become things. Think positive. I could tell them, you know, love yourself. Get you know, you show me what's special about you. I could tell them all those things which link to this. But actually, I'm now at a point where I'm thinking, could I be of more help? Because I can't wake anybody up. That's not our job to go around
unless
being
they
a savior. Yeah, you know, nobody is expecting us to be like some kind of savior and go around doing anything.
No
way. But what I can do is be available. You know, if I can, I've got time right now. I can speak to people. I've got loads of time on my hands, and I'm so happy to do it because the way, like, you know, you could say, oh well, what's the biggest achievement you could have in life? I know this is an achievement, but the biggest thing you can do is get to know yourself, and hopefully that's gonna lead you to realizing your true nature. Because once you've realized that, you can be rich or you can be poor. And don't get me wrong, it's more comfortable. You're more comfortable to have money and have nice things, and that's nice, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just stuff. It's just stuff, you know. As long as I'm fed and I've got a roof over my head, and there's people around me to love and to have fun with, like that's it. So I want that for you. Like I want that for everybody, and I know that we're all designed for this. It's inevitable. It's going to happen to everybody. I can't force it. But what I can do is, if you've got questions or if you're on this path, I can be here for you, and I can hold some space for you, even if it's just you want to talk, even if you're not interested in my opinion. That's good, but I can give my energy to you. Like, do you know what I mean? I can connect with you with you. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. I've got some money that I don't need to have a job for a while, and so yeah, I'm setting up a little Zoom call with the people who reached out to me from my first video. I'm happy for people to join in on that. And listen, I'm nobody's teacher. I'm nobody's guru. I am just another person. I'm just somebody that this happened for, and I feel privileged to have the point of view that I have. But again, there's nothing special about me. I can't wave a magic wand for anybody. But what I can do is tell you how I understand things. Is listen to you, is do you know what I mean? And so if I can do that, why wouldn't I do that? Of course I will.
So guys, you will find Paul's email in the description box. So if you feel like talking to him, feel free. And well, to finish our conversation, I would like to ask you one thing. Let's suppose you are a seeker, or you were seeking. What piece of advice would you give to those looking for self-realization? What should they do or not do?
Well, listen, I think as soon as you say you should do this or you shouldn't do that, it's wrong anyway, because it's so personal. Like I say, it's hard for me to put myself in that experience because I didn't have that experience. But one thing I say to a lot of the people I speak to is stop watching endless videos on the internet and taking everybody's perspective to be, because I get a lot of people and they're like, I've been listening to Muji and he says this, but now I've listened to Rupert Spira, but he said this and I think that this clashes. And I'm like, could you imagine, right, first of all, show you the menu and I can say to you, I've tasted this dish, but I can never, no matter how much I explain the dish or no matter how much I explain the dish from the menu, I can never make you understand the dish. Until you've eaten it yourself, you will never know. But then even once you have eaten it yourself, me and you have both eaten the same dish now. I might say, oh, it tastes really garlicky. And you might say, oh no, I taste the chili in it. I taste it very spicy. And we could both be telling the exact same truth, but it's just a different aspect of the meal. But that's just what we pick up on. So I'm like, you can watch all the videos in the world, and if they comfort you, if they soothe you, if they give you something, then go for it. But if it's getting to a point where it's making you question yourself because you know, you don't need anybody to tell you. I didn't need anybody to tell me, and I am not special. So you know in yourself. So other people can point at things, other teachers or whatever you want to call them can point at something, but they can't tell you. They can't tell you because your understanding might be slightly different. And guess what? It's still perfect. It's still perfect. We're all just looking at the same thing from different points of view.
Absolutely.
So it's all, every truth is the truth. We're just looking at it from our own point of view. So I would say, don't get caught up in everything you see on the internet as what is the most solid truth, because there isn't one truth. There isn't one truth. And also, there's a lot of people on the internet who are very sure. I am sure of this. And as soon as someone starts telling you, this is how it is, you need to do this, then I would run a mile, because you don't need to do anything. That maybe is what they did. Find your own path. Get to know yourself. Meditate. Follow the things that you love. If you love hanging out with dogs, go and hang out with dogs. They will teach you more than a year sitting watching other people's videos will. Like, it's simple. It's so simple, and it's your own little simple truth. Like, so if I was going to give any advice, it would be get to know yourself, meditate. Meditating is the key to the universe, by the way. And yeah, don't get too caught up with all the opinions and all the perspectives that you hear online, because they do trip each other up, or they appear to. Because what we are is infinite, it's limitless, and it can be seen from a million different perspectives, and they can all be true.
Absolutely. So you can share your opinion and your point of view and your experience, but the only thing that you can really do for other people is to turn them towards themselves and get them to look for their own guru. Right.
Because you are your own guru. I hate that word, guru. I also hate the word enlightened. Enlightened makes you sound like you should be sitting on a mountaintop, like levitating or something. Like, do you know what I mean? Realize how close to you this already is. You're looking for home outside of your own front window. You're literally looking for your own house out of your own front window. Do you know what I mean? You're already there.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful conversation, and for your beautiful energy. I feel super, charged with this positive impulse. I can continue, embracing people on the street. Well, and I hope we'll talk soon again.
Thank you so much, Alice. Listen, I always love speaking to you, so thank you. I feel great as well.
So do I.
I feel like I'm ready to go and have a great day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
There you are, still shining your light for all those beautiful parasites. Save some for yourself, sweet beast. Imploding star, supernova, creator. The universe sings, blessed metamorphosis. Let the transformation happen. Evolve, 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 or die.